What's up, you sexy YouTubers? So if you watched my previous video on my Jaguar XF troubles, you probably want to know what was the outcome on the follow-up repairs that the dealer had to do. So the two main things that I actually was struggling with was a suspension rattling or knocking sound going over bumps and undulating surfaces, and the second was the aircon wasn't working at its max. The aircon was actually leaking gas, and they could not determine whether it was leaking or where it was leaking. They had it for 5 days, and the first thing they did was replace the stabilizer bar bushings. And then they called me 2 days later to say that they replaced the bushings, but the noise is still there. And I said to them, well, then you guys must have misdiagnosed the problem, because you guys have got my car and I don't want it back with that noise, so take care of it. I then also asked them what's happening with the aircon. They didn't quite know how to answer me, because I warned them, don't phone me and tell me that there's nothing wrong with the aircon, or that you couldn't find the leak and that it's not leaking. Over those 5 days I spoke to several people at the dealer, and I spoke to the workshop foreman, I spoke to their quality manager, I spoke to Jaguar themselves, I spoke to my service advisor. On the very last, well, second to last day, the workshop foreman actually called me after I spoke to the service advisor, and he tried to explain the whole thing away. And I wasn't going to have any of that. I just told him, you know what, if you guys can't fix this aircon and you can't find the leak, then you need to take this car back. I don't want it. I think that kind of scared them, because within a matter of hours, I got a call from the service advisor telling me that they had found the leak and that it was coming from the small valve in the aircon. Now, the valve apparently is the high pressure valve where they actually fill the aircon. This is the explanation I was given. So what they did is, when I collected my car, I spoke to the workshop foreman, and because I had some technical questions I wanted to ask, and the service advisor couldn't answer them. So I asked to see the parts that they took off the car. He then showed me the parts that he took off the car for the aircon, and apparently they had to take off a big pipe on the aircon, a big metal pipe. There are actually two of them, to which the high pressure and low pressure valves are connected, and it comes as a set. You can't just buy the valves separately, so they had to replace the whole thing. So he showed me the actual valve that was leaking and how they remedied it, because after I spoke to him, what he did is, because they couldn't find any leaks on the condenser or the pipes or the evaporator, they decided that the only place that it could now be leaking, after talking to me and being very insistent that it was leaking, the only place that it could be leaking was at the valves. So the only way to test it was they took some oil and put some oil in the valve, took the caps off obviously, put some oil in the valve, and drove the car for a few kilometers, brought it back, and lo and behold, the pressure had built up in the system, and the little bubbles were coming out of this valve. So the little bubbles were blowing in the oil, and that's how they knew the valve was faulty. So if I had accepted the explanation that they couldn't find a leak and everything was hunky-dory, and I had said, okay, you know what, I trust you guys, I believe what you tell me, I'd have driven my car out there knowing that my suspension had been fixed, but really not knowing that my aircon, or believing that my aircon wasn't faulty, when in 3 to 4 months from now my car would have been going back to them for an aircon that isn't blowing cold again. So I think the moral of the story is, when you know something's wrong with your car and you tell the dealer and they call you back and they tell you, you know what, it's all in your head, there's nothing wrong with the car, you need to insist and trust your gut and tell them that you don't buy their story, and that you want them to fix it, and they need to find the cause. So the other thing with the suspension was that They replaced the bushings and they still heard a noise. It wasn't the noise that I was hearing, but it was some other kind of noise they were talking about. I didn't actually know what noise they were referring to, because the only noise I knew was the knocking sound when going over bumps. So what they did is they took the whole front suspension off the car, and they found that some bolts were actually not tightened properly. Now, not just that, behind the bolts was a little bit of surface rust. So yeah, that kind of worries a person as well. And the fact that there were bolts that weren't torqued to the correct spec tells me they lied the previous 2 times when my car did go in for the suspension, and they told me that they'd tightened all the bolts and checked the suspension, couldn't find anything wrong. And obviously I knew that because I had the video footage from my dash cam to prove that. So anyway, they took the whole suspension off, including the subframe, everything, put it all back together again after putting some copper grease on all the bolts, and they put the whole thing back together again. And obviously they had to do the wheel alignment again. But now the car feels like a brand new car. It feels like the whole front suspension is brand new, because when I go over bumps, it feels solid. If I go over a speed hump at low speed, it feels so solid and so well put together now compared to when I actually first drove the car off their lot. So these issues, the aircon and the suspension, were both issues that were wrong with the car when I bought it. And now that they've been remedied, I can honestly say the car feels totally different. It's like driving a brand new car, and I'm very, very happy with it. And I'm also happy that they've found the issue on the aircon. So I don't hold any grudges against the dealer. It's just a case of you really have to just be a strong person when dealing with them. And you have to stand your ground, and you have to tell them that you don't buy their banquet of bullshit. Am I going to keep the car? Am I going to sell it? I must be honest, I'm still in 2 minds on that. And I'm still looking for another car. I'm still looking for an old Jaguar XF with low mileage at the right price. I do have my eye on that white one still that I showed you guys in my previous video. The owner of the car is actually reluctant to sell it right now because he's only leaving the country later this year. So he's not going to budge on his price. And I'm not in a rush to sell my car either, or to trade it in. But there are things that I want to do. So I have to decide, do I want to do those things to this car, or do I wait? And if I do those things, then I'm probably not going to want to sell the car, like the Android thing. Now on the Android thing, I'm kind of deciding, a lot of you, thank you very much, have given me some information on other systems that are available, like an Android CarPlay that you can hook onto the car's original OEM system without replacing the head unit. I think they're called Unique Solutions or something like that, but I'll put a link in the description. So I'm in 2 minds. Should I go with Android Auto? Should I replace the whole screen? What do you guys think? Would you replace the whole screen, with the wider screen, the 10-inch screen, or would you just go with the Android box? I think the Android box is around $229 as opposed to $1,000 some change for the whole screen setup. But let's keep in mind that the whole screen setup is it's a bigger screen. It's going to have Android Auto on it as well, but it's going to have full Android on it. And I think it's got Android 9 on it. So let me know what you think in the comments below. What would you do if this was your car? Would you go Android full out? So that's it for this video. It's just an update on what's actually going on with the car. And I want to thank you guys for your support and all the comments you guys gave on my last video. I really appreciated it. I don't want you guys to hate on Jaguar. And I also don't want you to hate on this car. It is a good car. It's not as good as the previous one, but it is still a good car. And I think it's just sad that I'm not as attached to this car as I am to the old shape XF. So if I can find a 2014, 2015 model at the right price, then I'll probably buy it. And when I say the right price, I mean like a straight swap, where I can buy that car for this car, just swap them around. Because this car has unfortunately depreciated quite a lot since I bought it in the last 7-8 months. And the older shape XF, they've now reached a point where they are depreciating at a lesser rate These newer ones are depreciating very fast because it's still young and it's still within its maintenance plan. But I think when the maintenance plan runs out at the end of the year, this thing's really going to take a dive in value. So I had to think about that as well. And I can buy an extended maintenance plan for the car and warranty at a huge cost. So there's that. Would I do that, or would I rather buy an old shape and then just buy a warranty from Jaguar for that car? So there's a lot to think about, and I'll let you guys know as things go along. So thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you. Stay tuned for the next video. Cheers. Bye.